It was June 28th of 2019 and I was about to be home alone for a few hours. It was also the start of school holidays, meaning I would just freshen up, relax, and just do absolutely nothing every single day. I was told by my parents that there was this house party going on 10 minutes away from my house and that they were invited, so that means I'd be all by myself for a couple of hours. They did try to convince me to come with, but I easily resisted because I enjoy being home alone, even if it's a little bit creepy. I said goodbye to my parents, closed the door, and turned around feeling the dead silence hit me in the face. I don't own any pets and I'm an only child, so when I say that I was completely alone, I mean it. I immediately walked into the kitchen, grabbed a snack, turned on the lounge room TV, and went on Netflix to watch a horror movie. I decided to put on Hush, which was a horror thriller movie, so that quickly caught my attention. I really do enjoy watching horror movies while home alone because I just feel it's the best and most scariest time to do it, instead of watching it with a group of friends who won't shut up and not even focus on the film. I was like 30 minutes into the movie and I was pretty invested with what was going on and was not at all focusing on anything that was going on around me. I almost fell off the couch, startled by the loud banging coming from the front door. I quickly paused the movie and just sat there, waiting for another bang at the door, and sure enough, I very slowly stood up and started walking towards the front door, noticing the doorknob aggressively shaking, meaning the person on the other end was trying to get in. I was really panicking now and was thinking whether or not I should even answer the door. My stupid 13-year-old self went up to the door and shouted, "Who is it?" I could briefly hear heavy breathing coming from the other side, and could just barely hear the person shout back,
"You're deaf."
The feeling in my stomach when I heard those words was something I had never felt before. This freak continued to bang on the door and shouted for me to open up, but I quickly ran into the kitchen, grabbed a sharp knife, and called the police. The woman said that they would be there in about 10 minutes, and she told me to stay on the call, but I wasn't thinking straight and hung up. I continued panicking, but when I finally calmed down for a second, I realized the banging had stopped. It was completely silent, so I got up and slowly started walking back to the front door. I started squealing like a little girl after hearing the horrific noise of my glass window shattering. I could briefly see the creepy looking man holding an axe while he came inside the house through the broken window. I ran upstairs and into my room, which didn't have a lock on it and there weren't really any places to hide, so I just sat in the corner of the room and started reflecting on my whole life, knowing that it was going to be the end of it. I began hearing loud screaming coming from the man, and a bit of struggling from another person. I didn't know what else to do but to leave my room and see what was happening. As I was slowly walking downstairs, I saw Max, who was my neighbor, standing next to the crazy man who was on the ground with a knife stabbed into his back. The police arrived just in time and I explained everything to them. I gave Max all my blessings for saving my ass just in time, and if it wasn't for him, I would have been as good as dead. The police took the man away, and thankfully, I never had to see him again. I was home alone for the night, getting done some homework that needed to be finished. My mum was at a friend's house, my dad was in the city watching a footy game, and my older brother was working. I do own a dog whose name is Buddy, and he's always willing to protect us from any potential danger. It was around 9:30 p.m. and all I was focusing on was my homework and nothing else, so the whole house was completely silent, and it was a little weird, but it helped me focus more on the work. I got up from my seat and started stretching my arms out from all the exhausting work I got done, but then out of nowhere, I hear... I just stood there for at least 20 seconds after hearing that noise, which was coming from the back door, which leads to the backyard. I've never heard anything like that before, and I was too paranoid to do anything. Buddy started going crazy, barking at whatever was out the back door, and I really wasn't sure if I should let him out and chase the thing off. The sounds of claws scratching against my wall was enough for me to grab a flashlight, put my shoes on, and see what the hell was roaming in my backyard. I let Buddy out first and he immediately took off running as I slowly heard his barking fade away. I let myself out, turned on the flashlight, and the feeling of something jumping out really got me, but I carried on. I couldn't hear or find anything and Buddy's barking completely stopped, which made me fear for the worst. After minutes of complete quietness, the growling sounds came back, and they were louder than ever. I was searching all around the backyard with my flashlight trying to look for this thing, but then all of a sudden, something drops right in front of me. I raised my flashlight down and was disturbed to see Buddy dead on the ground. I almost started puking after noticing his stomach had been eaten and half of his legs were gone. I began to cry, but before I actually could, I raised my flashlight up on the roof and saw this thing. I don't even know how to describe it. All I could see were their bright red eyes staring directly at me. I turned around and made a dash for the back door, staying far away from whatever that thing was. I made it back inside the house and I didn't know what to think. I was in so much shock that I thought it was all just a dream and began pinching myself to wake up. All I can now hear was that creature making the most horrifying noises I have ever heard in my life and began blocking my ears out of fear. I quickly ran into my room, locked the door, and called my mum. I was crying while telling her everything, and she started freaking out herself, telling me to stay in my room and that she would be home in 5 minutes. I hung up the phone and laid in my bed, waiting for my mum to get home. I could hear the sounds of the back door being smashed by the creature, and all I could do was just hide underneath my blanket and wait for it to stop, and sure enough, it finally did. After at least 40 seconds, I lifted my head from the blanket, looking around the room, and then stared at the window that shows the backyard. I could see the bright red eyes staring at me again, and I immediately started screaming as the creature took off somewhere, and just as it did, my mum knocked on the door. I opened it and we both hugged each other while crying our eyes out. To this day, I still have no idea what that thing was or why it was in our backyard, but all I know is that it killed my dog and left me feeling nothing but fear whenever I'm alone by myself.